in, day out fight over how to fund the government and over, poll numbers dropping, the public getting sick and tired of all this. They were just like, we're not doing this again. That's basically what you heard on the Senate floor today, even though there was a lot in there that both parties didn't like.
Well, let me ask you that. I mean, I could almost understand that. And Rick Santorum basically yesterday said a similar thing on this show. But when it comes to John Boehner and what he said, not only on day one, but when he came back the next day and doubled down and really ripped into the conservative groups and the Tea Partiers, and basically, said that they led us to shut down the government, which was so foolish on so many levels. First of all, he's standing there saying we shut down the government when anybody with a brain who's a Republican would at least try to say, we didn't do it. It was the president. It was Harry Reid. But no, he said they led us to shut down the government, and he yelled. And I mean, what is the method to his madness here? Is it to set the plate for immigration reform later next year, as Nancy Pelosi said she was promised by Boehner? Is it to really cut ties with the conservative groups? Well, what is it?
Well, I would think this is more about responding kind of viscerally to what the outside groups who are, inspired by the Tea Party and funded by the Tea Party, what they have done, which is turn against the party. They run ads against members. I mean, I think in terms of the mainstream GOP, Boehner, et cetera, they feel like, hey, these guys started it. They started running ads against their own members. They started really pressuring and trying to insert themselves here, but mostly spending money to run against your own party is a big no-no, and that's why the Boehner got out there and turned against them, because this is all about 2014. And these groups, Heritage Action and others, they don't want to try to, take down the GOP in order to get more conservative members in if they think it's going to mean giving up the chance to win the Senate in 2014, maintain the House majority in 2014. I think that they want to prevent the conservative group from what they think is an effort to, put their own views in under any circumstance.
At the expense of the party, yeah.
They want to win. They want to win in 2014, and that way they can govern the way they want. They feel like we listened to this group, and look what it did to us in the polls. Look what it did to us in 2012. We lost our chance to take over the Senate. It was ours for the taking, and look, we had these candidates that just blew it. We threw it away. I think you heard from Boehner the sort of I'm fed up. Now, that doesn't mean that the views and the efforts by these groups aren't to be taken seriously or aren't worthy in and of themselves. I'm just explaining the reason why the leadership.
Oh, yeah, no, I understand this isn't your opinion. You're trying to get inside Boehner's head, yeah.
And everyone says it's about immigration. I might be missing something. I feel it could more be about they're saying, oh no, you don't. You don't come in here and try to turn against Republicans because we're not doing what you want. We did what you wanted in October, and look where it got us. They feel not only like the polls went sour on them, but that they changed the subject from the health care law, which was making the case for Republicans without them lifting a finger. They're like, oh, look what we did. We distracted from the health care law rollout, which was such a debacle, and we wasted time letting voters think that the Republicans were obstructionists when we all should have been talking about healthcare.gov not working and high premiums and people getting kicked off their insurance.
No, you're right. You could make that point, and of course I know that's what you're saying. He's saying, and I could make the point that Boehner handled this as poorly as you could possibly handle it. What Boehner should have said now, let's go post shutdown, is we told you so every single day. We told you so. That's what the shutdown was about. We didn't shut it down, but we were just looking for postponement of this debacle, of this disaster, and be proactive that way, and maintain that they didn't shut it down, and point out that Harry Reid and the president wouldn't fund the National Institute of Health for kids with cancer. Keep harping on these things. He doesn't say anything. He waved the white flag. He said, we lost, instead of, again, I've run this by you before, instead of saying at the time when they gave in, We lost, but we gave in, yes, because we had a president who was willing to go over the debt ceiling cliff for the first time ever, and all over the fact that we only wanted a delay in the medical tax device for a year. That's how this president, was so unwilling to negotiate. That's why we surrendered. We did it for the American people. Here's a speaker who instead says, yeah, we lost. I mean, I could blame him for the negative publicity. The media, goes without saying, is going to give it to you, but instead of fighting it, he goes along with it.
Right, and he does, and you could many have made the argument that the Republicans should instead be making that exact case, like, look, but they were never fully behind Ted Cruz and the filibuster and the argument. It's funny because, they make the case against Obamacare, yet they don't want to go all the way with it and do what Ted Cruz is doing. I mean, some of them embraced it by getting on the floor and talking with him all night long when he did the so-called filibuster. But you're right. I mean, for the most part, Republicans kind of want it both ways. They want to oppose the health care law, but they kind of want to do it on their terms, the mainstream Republicans. Boehner does. I don't think they like the idea of these outside groups coming in and trying to force their methodology, their tactics, down the throat to the Republicans under the threat of, we're going to primary you. Because Republicans not only feel angered by that, like, oh, you're going to attack me, well, hey, I'm going to attack you, but they feel like it's so dangerous to their prospects in 2014. Their goal is to prevent a civil war from disrupting their efforts to, win, basically. I mean, it's not just, it's only December, but I would say that the Republicans and the Democrats are all really focused on next year and the jockeying for victory.
Well, let me give you, we're talking to Susan Ferrechio, Chief Congressional Correspondent, Washington Examiner, here on the Steve Malzberg Show. I'm sure you're well aware of the numbers out today from the Washington Post ABC News poll. Let me go over some of them. Obama approval, 55 disapprove, 43 approve. How he's handling the economy, 55 disapprove, 42 approve. The question of who respondents trust to do a better job with the nation's problems, 41-41, Obama and the congressional Republicans. Who do you trust more to handle the economy? 45 say Republicans, 41 say Obama. And the Affordable Care Act, do you trust Obama more with the implication, or Republicans? Well, they say 42 Obama. I don't know what that's about. But I don't recall ever before seeing that more Republicans trust more people trust the Republicans than Obama on the economy. I mean, the people are supposed to believe this line that the economy's turned around. So what's that about?
Is this voters or is this just people?
You know what? I don't have the whole thing in front of me. I should, but I don't.
That's important. And also, I'll note that that's not the first poll to show a shift in voter sentiment about who's best at handling things, Republicans versus Democrats,
right,
where Republicans are winning out on some very key issues. Foreign policy, the economy, health care, things that really matter to people. And that's important because when people vote, they vote about what means the most to them. And I think that could really, it's only December 2013. We've got a whole year for this thing to play out, shift around, have other news take over. I think a lot of it will hinge, though, for the president and for Democrats on this health care law, because the health care law has such a huge net. It casts a huge net. It's a sixth of the economy. It's people's pocketbooks. It's jobs. It's all of those things. So the health care law does not roll out the way the Democrats hope, meaning it becomes affordable, it becomes accessible, it creates jobs and doesn't destroy jobs. If it doesn't do those things, then you're going to see more polls like this, and you're going to see a really tough time for Democrats, particularly in the Senate, where you have these vulnerable seats already with Democrats in red states. I think they'll just be wiped out in 2014 if the health care law continues to look like it does now, which is higher premiums, a messed up website, no security, people losing their doctors. It's basically a mess right now, and if it stays a mess, the Democrats are finished.
Right. Well, that's the key. The economy and the jobs and all that. But the key is people now, and it's limited in scope to the 6 or 7 million. But all predictions are that at this time next year, it's going to be near 100 million. You know, the scramble, the doctors you lose, the hospitals you can't visit, the insurance policies obviously that you can't keep, not knowing if you're signed up. I mean, and the prices. The average deductible is now $5,000. I've been talking about deductibles for months, and now people are starting to talk about deductibles. And like I've told almost every guest when we talk about this, you think any young person who's signing up or anybody who's going to get a subsidy for their premiums and signing up has a clue that they're going to have to, they'll go to the doctor, they'll think they're insured. Hey, you pay it. No. When they see they have to pay thousands of dollars first, they're going to say, what the heck?
Right. It's like having no coverage. And like you said, the important point you just made, too, was that right now we're talking about in the single digits, millions of people losing their current policies, et cetera. That's because the employer mandate is not kicked in, which could invite, tens of millions of more people to be dumped onto the healthcare exchanges because employers will, for various reasons, decide to no longer offer plans to their employees. Now, that is where, some people are predicting really true mayhem here, where you're going to have a lot of people dumped onto these exchanges. Now, some Democrats think, well, that's a good thing. You'll push more people on.
Yeah.
You may change the death spiral that it could be on now without having young people signed up. You'll have young employees forced on. But why would they be happy if, like you were saying, for singles, that's a $5,000 deductible. For a lot of families, that deductible is the max allowed, which is $12,700.
And here's the thing, Susan, they can't. They're in a panic. I know I would be. They can't afford it. I mean, it's not even a question of, okay, well, we'll have to cough up the money. I mean, this is a choice between college savings, if you have any, or retirement savings, or now paying your deductible. I mean, it's just insane what's going to happen. Hey, I got to go. Great to talk to you. If we don't speak next week, and we probably won't, it's a short week, have a very Merry Christmas, okay?
Thanks, Joe. Appreciate the time. Thanks.
Thank you, Susan. Susan Ferrechio, Chief Congressional Correspondent, Washington Examiner. Folks, when we come back, you're going to want to hear from our next guest, David Solway, noted Canadian poet, and what he wrote about Obama. Don't go away.